So one of the most common questions I get as a realtor is, if I only have X amount of dollars and I want to renovate something, what is the best return on my money? What should I end up renovating? Should I do a basement, a kitchen, a bathroom, the exterior? Well, today we're going to talk about how to pull permits and whether that's necessary in Winnipeg, what the best return on your money is, and what most buyers are looking for when they go to buy your place. Okay, so let's talk about the permitting process in Winnipeg. And take this with a grain of salt, because if you've ever bought a place in Winnipeg, you know that a lot of time homeowners do work without permits. This is usually because people don't want to get the city involved. And that's because it does have extra steps when you involve the city. The biggest thing is that the city is going to send out an inspector who will close off the permit, making sure work was done to code, which isn't really a bad thing. It just takes a bit longer because you need to wait for that inspector to schedule time. The city isn't always on the same timeline that you are in getting work done. Most of the time, permits are required for any sort of work that is adding plumbing, electrical, any sort of basement development, secondary suite, stuff like that. But I think you'd be surprised how much work you can actually do as a homeowner that doesn't require a permit. If you are unsure, it's best to just call the city himself and ask if you need a permit for the work that's being done. Now, the other caveat I will add here is a lot of times contractors will do the work for you, but double check if they're pulling permits or not, because they might give you a quote that's cheaper if they're not pulling permits. And even though they're a certified tradesperson, they might not want to pull permits because it'll take a lot longer for them to do that work as well. The city of Winnipeg has an online portal that makes it very easy to pull permits. And in many cases, because the city understands a lot of people don't want to pull permits, they actually can be quite helpful in guiding you along that process. Okay, so let's talk about ROI, or return on your investment, because this is one of the most crucial parts of renovating. You don't want to sink money into something that's not going to give you a return, because then you're just wasting dollars. You're just throwing it down the drain. And so there is sort of 5 main areas that generally get you your best return on money. And there's a difference between upgrading a home and fixing a home. And we'll talk about the difference in a second. The 5 main areas that you want to consider are going to be kitchens, bathrooms, basements, exterior, and interior. Okay, and the interior is going to be sort of more miscellaneous stuff like flooring, painting, trim, stuff like that. And the difference between updating a house is that when you update, you're forcing equity on that property by forcing appreciation, causing the value in the house to go up, which is what people want. But when you're fixing problems with the house, like an outdated furnace, a bad roof, a leaky something, that generally doesn't add a ton of value. And so I'll give you an example. If you were to buy a $400,000 house and it had a bad furnace and a bad roof, and you replace those, is somebody going to pay more than $400,000 because you replace those? Well, if the comparables are at $400,000, probably not. This is why people often try to negotiate a discount on these types of homes. Okay, but in that same breath, if you're going to update a house by buying that $400,000 house and redoing the kitchen and the basement and the bathroom, your house will now be worth a lot more because the comparables are no longer accurate. You see, before, your reference point was a house, assuming it had all of those things that were non-deficient. And because that's where the reference point is, anything that's worse than that is worth less, which makes sense, but you need to fix that to bring it up to the benchmark. If you improve it, you're going to a different benchmark. And that's why improving the house is different than updating the house. Okay, and the best return on your money is going to be usually in kitchens. Now, the market data shows that usually you're getting about 110 to 175% of a return, meaning if you invested $100,000, you get back about 110 to 175 in value. Now, that's a very expensive kitchen. I'm just using round numbers because the math is easier. In the same way, bathrooms are actually your next highest, and these numbers can really differ depending on the type of house. And I will add to that all of these numbers are very generic because it depends on the house and the area and the condition it was in when it sold, as well as the neighboring homes and the comparable market data. The reason people value the bathrooms and the kitchens is because they're spending intimate time there. When you're cooking or spending time with a family, it's nice to have a nice kitchen. The bathroom is the opposite. Usually that's a personal, intimate experience, going to the washroom, taking a long shower. People want to be in a nice place when they're doing those kinds of activities, right? Your bedroom is very important, but if you're mostly just sleeping there, it's typically not viewed in the same view as a buyer. Now, basement is huge because most homes in Winnipeg have basements, and that finished space can dramatically increase the amount of space that it seems to be livable or usable in a house. You can take a bungalow, and if you finish the basement, it feels like you doubled the living space, which is massive. Okay, and the interior is sort of at the bottom of the list, because unless you do those other stuff, there's not really a point in doing just flooring and painting and other stuff, because it will make the other stuff feel out of place. And that is also with curb appeal. Curb appeal does have a good return, but if you have a house that has a great curb appeal and they walk in and everything else is ugly, those homes don't show well, they don't sell well. If your house is done up nice on the inside and it doesn't have nice curb appeal, it can be harder to get buyers in the door, but once they're in the door, it shows well and they like it. The best combo is obviously when both are nice, but it's much more important to have the inside appear to be a lot nicer, because people will be disappointed if the outside is nice and the inside isn't. Their experience as a buyer walking in is actually joyful if the outside is not nice and the inside it is. Keep in mind, when buyers are viewing properties, they're typically spending about 90 to 95% of the time inside the house. And so that's where most of their attention is drawn to. It makes sense that they're going to prioritize the stuff inside the house. Outside, they're usually walking around once or twice. They look at the front. If they like it, then they go through with buying it. And just as a sort of last word of advice, if you are thinking about renovating something, consult a realtor ahead of time so you know what's worth your while. Because you might be in an area where basement renovations don't add as much value as you'd like. If it's less than a 100% return, you're actually losing money. There is also the scenario where you might be renovating something because that's the only way that you would be able to sell it, is if you renovate it. And if you don't renovate it, your house compared to other homes on the market are not as nice, and so yours won't sell and the other ones will. And so that's it for today. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'd love to chat about what you think are the best renovations in homes in Winnipeg.